and welcome back to our channel. And we are now here with our spoiler review for Obi Wan Kenobi, the first episode. And that kind of always confuses me in Star Wars when we start some series and it starts with episode 1. Should it be starting with episode 4? I don't know where I've got that from. But anyway, I think we had a great new start to a new series with a character I really love. And so far I can say Disney really didn't mess it up. So let's look at the details. How did you like it?
Yeah, it was nice to see for me to see the last episodes and to fill the gap with that series. That I'm really up to it to see how Obi-Wan developed. Yeah, between 3 and actually 4, so to say. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a mystery that we haven't yet solved because, I mean, the actor is, of course, the actor from the prequels, and it's already 10 years after the prequels, and I think he's aged appropriately. So within the next 10 or so years, he has to age by, I don't know, 30 years to look like the original actor of Obi Wan Kenobi. That's one of the big mysteries. But before we get to this, we see the adventures he's experienced in between. And right in the beginning, we are confronted with what seems to become one of the big opponents, or is he going to be? I mean, we'll already learn more about this in a moment, but we meet the Grand Inquisitor, which we already know from the I'm watching this with my kid now, and I don't know the name. What's it called? The Clone Wars animated series.
Okay.
And we meet him again, apparently the big evil guy in this series. And we also see the situation that Obi Wan Kenobi is in. He's now banned because he has to go into hiding. And he's apparently in some meat factory doing some really, really silly job cutting meat. He doesn't interfere if things go wrong. And he's riding to work in some kind of Star Warsy subways and getting to the subways with some elephant camel, which is called an Aopi.
Yeah, what I wondered at first is why he took the meat from his work, and I believe we saw a scene where he fed it to his what it is called, Eope?
I think it's an Aopi,
Yeah.
yes.
So what I wondered.
That's at least what the subtitle said.
Okay, are those animals eat meat? So because they look like camels stuff, and
they look like elephant camels as far as I'm concerned. So I don't know. Do elephants eat meat? I don't know what elephants eat. I think they eat mostly. They're mostly vegetarian or vegan. Yeah. I don't know, but I'm not for sure. But then, I mean, whatever.
Yeah, it's a desert planet. I think it's quite logical that they don't eat grass, maybe, and that they rely on meat. So maybe that's how things work on Tatooine. So I guess
possibly it does make sense.
It does
make sense. Anyway, there are these Javas, of course, and apparently there's this weird Java who kind of steals parts from Obi-Wan and sells them back to him.
Yeah, this was so weird. And how he predicted it. Oh, does your what is damaged? The fuel pump or stuff, or his engine was damaged? I don't know what Obi.
Because I took apart.
Yeah, that was so
and
funny.
He doesn't even clean it. Like, wow. Okay, but I mean, Obi-Wan was always like a bit of too much of a nice guy, I felt. So maybe he just doesn't want to get into trouble. But that trait seems to like be really, really, really strong. I mean, he gets those flashback in dreams after we've already had like this opening scene and stuff. I think that's probably for the audience to remember what happens, but also like he is really haunted by the idea of having killed Anakin. And by that time, he doesn't seem to know yet that Anakin is still alive, or is he? Or how will we phrase this? You know?
Yeah, I mean, a point why you can see how he is, yeah, so to say, haunted from his past. He hides in a little, what it is called. He is hiding from the society in a cave, and
mostly from the
yeah,
Inquisitors, it seems,
yeah,
from
and
the Empire. But I mean, it's also a wise thing to do. Let's face it, under the circumstances, if he really believes that he is protecting the chosen one or the son of the chosen one, or however the understanding of what exactly Luke and Leia are. So he has an important mission. And I mean, while it is tough, it totally makes sense, you know, to set his priorities, doesn't it? I mean, if he protects the only chance to ever get rid of the Empire for good, that's not something you should give up for, as sad as it sounds, a much smaller victory.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Definitely. So definitely, it's completely understandable that he lives this secluded life he's living just to protect the child, and he's living that very close to the family where Luke is raised. And I think it's completely understandable that he doesn't want to show up. And I think he's also making this very clear to this other Jedi that comes to ask for help.
Yeah, and he gives him advice, but he doesn't take the advice.
Yeah.
And you see what the result would have been. I mean, like, maybe this other Jedi, had he secluded himself and maybe picked his battles a little wiser, picking those battles that he could have won, maybe he could have done a little bit of good here and there. But now he's not doing any good at all. So I think it is wise to know what you can do and what you can't do. That's kind of, you know, being a crossover to another Disney franchise, the Pirates of the Caribbean. A man has to know what he can do and what he can't do, or something like that. You know, yes, but it's true. I mean, isn't it?
Yeah.
But he does try to prepare Luke, and he already we already introduced to the idea that Luke will be trained at some point, even though, given the background, I don't know how much it makes sense that he isn't already training him, but I think it's part of keeping a low profile. How much could he train him? And also then there's the resistance of Owen, but he does give him like a toy that is about to, it has a potential to awaken his dreams, and Owen gives it back to him and goes like, no, we don't want toys, we don't want any dreams. So that's kind of very interesting. It kind of fits the character of Owen, even though we see a younger Owen who is not a complete coward. On the other hand, he has completely different values, but he's also not a complete coward. And I think that's interesting because it makes Owen more relatable.
In the series, Owen is represented to us very, very tough. He gives a shit, so to say, about the Inquisitors, and he has no fear. At least I had the impression that he has absolutely no fear of them.
I think that's probably too much in favor of Owen. I think he makes a better picture than he did in the original, where he was just discouraging Luke, and he was just this voice of the refusal in terms of the hero's journey. Now he is somebody who says, okay, my priorities are protecting my people, so I want Luke to live a life rather than no life. And he seems to have no hope that things could go better. And he thinks, well, Obi-Wan did train his father, and that went pretty wrong. So what are the chances it will go better? Which is, of course, a very depressing thought, because that means kind of like, if you do something wrong once, you can never hope to succeed and learn from your mistakes. So there is still this strong refusal, but he has some level of courage. He is not just, I mean, he could just get rid of Obi-Wan by just saying, look, I know where the Jedi is. Here, get him.
Mhm.
And then Luke would be safe, but he doesn't do that. He's not an a-hole. He's just scared of the Empire, but he's not so much scared to lose all his character. And I think that's interesting to see him like this.
Yeah, that makes sense. And going back to the hero's journey, I had the impression that Obi-Wan very often had at least at the first series, um, yeah, he wasn't able to overcome the, how to say it? You know what I mean? How he wasn't able to overcome his own hindrance. I don't know.
Do you mean the first episode of
Yeah,
this series? Or
yeah,
do you
yeah.
mean
The first
okay?
episode of that series. Episode
Okay.
was the word. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he looked like he made the impression of being really just a shadow of himself,
Mhm.
and I wonder why that would be. I mean, of course, he's been put down a lot by circumstances. He might have been disappointed and stuff, but he was reasonably positive in the movie episode 4 in A New Hope. He was believing that Luke could be the one who overthrows the Empire, defeats Darth Vader and stuff. So we're meeting him apparently in a moment where he has lost some of that, and he also seems to have lost some of his fighting abilities, or at least his trust in his fighting abilities.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not saying he could take on the entire Empire on his own. Obviously, he can't. So it makes sense for him to be in hiding. But I'm not sure if it was in part 1 or part 2 where he says, I'm not the man I used to be, sort of ish. So I don't know, what kind of man does he think of himself to be? So we see him anyway, discouraged. He's hidden away his lightsaber, which I guess makes sense. Even though I don't know how much of a secret person is he anyway. I mean, if they are onto him with searching his quarters for a lightsaber, really make all the difference? I don't know.
I think someone would recognize him by his appearance, maybe.
I would assume so, but I don't know. I mean, but I think it's more like a symbol that he's kind of put that away. We get this in a lot of movies where like the hero has stepped away from his old heroic ways. I mean, it's completely different series, but I think in what's he called? The action series with Keanu Reeves.
John Wick.
John Wick. In John Wick, I think he has a baton thing where he where his whole his old stuff is in cement in the ground. So
I
he has
remember.
to dig it out literally. Same idea, I think. So we go like he wanted to be all peaceful and stuff. I think it's a little slightly different energy there, but it's kind of like this big symbolic thing. Okay, I'm taking back my lightsaber, which he eventually does. So I think that shows us certainly. I mean, also with him working in this environment, I don't know if he has any funds to live on, or if this is just a cover-up, or if he literally needs to cut meat to have some food. I don't know about that.
Yeah, that's a very good question, but I had the impression that the whole stuff we have seen in the movies, it was his actual life. He works like a regular guy, so to say. Yeah, for his food, and he lives in a cave, in a hideout. So
Yeah. I mean,
I,
it's also like the ideal place to observe Luke from.
yeah,
But I mean, after all, I mean, I would assume that some people still have money to at least support somebody like Obi Wan, who takes an important function. I mean, the Organas, clearly they're not poor. That's pretty obvious.
mhm.
So I think, they have a whole palace still that they fund. They could fund one person more. I don't know if it's would be a problem if somebody could trace those funds. That could be an issue, but or maybe it's just a cover that it makes it completely plausible that he's just this average guy who has no funds, no money, no nothing.
Yeah,
And
maybe
therefore,
maybe both. Maybe both. I think it's a risk. If you give him funds, if the Organas would give him funds, it's a risk for him. It's risk that that his cover up will blow up, so he will be found maybe if there would be transfer of funds.
It does make sense, certainly. Also, I guess, I mean, yes, he appears just like an unimportant character, but what I don't get, I mean, he was told by Yoda that he can communicate with his old master. So I assume he continues his training. So I would assume he would, if anything, get better. And I mean, his old master was Qui-Gon Jinn. He was somebody who had a lot of positive spirit. He had a lot of belief. So if that is his main person he communicates with, how is it that he is such a depressive shadow of his former self? That's what I don't get.
So I had the impression that he doesn't use this opportunity to communicate with his old
It
master.
wasn't shown anyway.
Yeah,
it wasn't shown.
He tried, I think he tried once or twice, didn't he? That he tried to communicate when he was really in need of that. But I had the impression that he didn't look for the contact, and also that he didn't train anymore.
It would seem so. At least that would make sense. But it doesn't make sense, because why would he not if he has the opportunity? It's like, I mean, they're communicating through the Force. I don't think that's easy to be intercepted or something,
Yeah, of course. But
and he's like in the most secluded place you could be. So anybody who wants to, I don't know, bug his place, he would see them coming for a mile. I don't know.
Yeah, it looks pretty safe to train and go on with everything. But as you said, he seems really depressed and
yeah. So
like a shadow of himself.
I hope we still get an explanation, because if we didn't, that would be, I think, a plot hole in a way.
Yeah, but we know already from episode 4 of the movies that this changes somehow. I think it has to change during this series.
Theoretically, it could change after the series, of course.
Yeah, of
depending
course,
on how long it goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but somehow, I mean, the whole communication with Qui-Gon Jinn, of course, wasn't mentioned in episode 4, but we do know that yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's like, if we take this all literally, and of course in reality this has all been written after the fact of A New Hope has already been out, to a certain extent, but then A New Hope was always meant to be episode 4, with this weird way of counting. But I mean, in a way, there's a lot of things, like, I mean, he sees R2D2 and he goes like, did I have a droid like that? And if you look at everything that happened before, like, how could you forget that?
Yeah.
So I don't know if he was just playing the fool here, or really lost part of his marbles somewhere in the process, or part of his memory. It's kind of weird, because he's still this kind of, yeah, I don't know. weird character.
I had the impression, a little spoiler to episode 2, I believe, that he has a really hard time to reconnect to his force. On that moment when he dropped Leia, or Leia fell down, just to spoil a little bit further, he had a really hard time to hold her back. Or I had the
Yes,
impression.
that is the case. That is the case.
Mhm.
So yeah, why was that? So we kind of can assume that he kind of neglected his training.
Mhm.
Certainly hasn't progressed since. That if that is so, we can only assume that he probably didn't have too much contact with his old master. It's not like he did have this, like, his Force Zoom conference once a day.
Mhm.
Maybe, I don't know, the Force Wi-Fi is bad somewhere in the middle of the Tatooine desert. I don't know what the problem was. Or maybe he just did have connection problems. Happens to all of us.
But didn't he also advise the other Jedi to leave his old life behind? So maybe he took this for himself also literally and tried really to leave his old Jedi life behind.
Yes, that's a part of an explanation. On the other hand, it's not an explanation at all, because, I mean, he's still there doing his job. I mean, the only reason he is there is to protect Luke
And to eventually train him.
and
If
to
he-
eventually train him.
Mhm.
So what point? I mean, he would be better at training him if he is better trained.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
And we can always speculate whether he might have actually been more successful if he not, or actually it might have been more successful if it would have been Qui-Gon Jinn who trained him. And while Qui-Gon Jinn wasn't the best fighter in the world and was killed by I'm really
Darth
out of
Maul?
names.
Darth Maul.
Darth Maul, exactly. By Darth Maul, we do hear in some of the material that he was actually somebody who was a really, really excellent Jedi. And he is in many ways compared even to Yoda.
Mhm.
So he would have been an excellent teacher. And of course, he was the one who found a way to communicate through the Force.
Yeah.
So
Maybe.
and clearly Obi-Wan had at some point learned that, because we know he's coming back in The Empire Strikes Back. And even before that, he comes as a voice in A New Hope. So he must have learned that. He must have at some point learned to communicate with his old master Qui-Gon Jinn.
Yeah, I guess we will see the development, or I hope at least that we will see his progress and the development, how he progressed to that point. So, yeah, we are at the beginning yet.
Let's keep it a little forward.
Mhm.
So there's the whole thing about Leia, which is also a character here. I didn't really know we'd see her at all, but there's a young Leia. She is a little bit of a troublemaker. She avoids going to some kind of ceremony by putting a decoy in there, which is a tactic she probably took from her mother. Then she's playing in the woods, some kind of dude. First of all, I thought it was an inquisitor, but it seems to be more like a some kind of a minion of the inquisitors or whatever it is.
Yeah, like a headhunter, maybe.
A headhunter, yes, I think it's a headhunter. These guys are headhunters. Good observation. So yeah, she's playing there. And she seems to be quite intelligent. I mean, I really loved the reply to her cousin, like, oh, you don't need to be polite talking to lower life forms. Yeah, so I don't need to be polite talking to you. Yeah. That was brilliant.
Yeah, that was quite awesome. And yeah, she has awesome communication skills. And yeah, I like her very much.
Yeah, but at the same time, later on, she seems to behave like a complete fool. So that's kind of weird. So she's very intelligent. She's 10 years old, so she seems to be an intelligent 10-year-old. But at other times, I mean, okay, and we're just talking about episode 1 at the moment, and we have this kidnapping scene, and she runs away, and I mean that was actually prolonged. I thought. I mean, I always felt like there's no way she can run away that long. You know, I don't know how you guys felt about it, but like the grown-up was like a few meters behind her, and she was like getting away and getting away and getting away.
Yeah, it felt a little bit unrealistic in my opinion.
But eventually she was caught, so it doesn't change the story big time. And the whole thing ends with Senator Organa coming and begging him for help.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and so it was this episode where he says, yeah, I'm not the man I used to be and stuff. So we really get this picture of him having lost a lot of his skills and abilities, or at least forgotten them or whatever. And this is where the episode 1 cuts off.
Yeah.
Yes, and then we had a next episode, and I will be very glad to discuss it also with you.
Yeah, let's go right into the next episode in a moment, in our next video. So looking forward to see you in our next video, guys. And don't forget to like this one, thumbs up, share it all over the internet, because this is the way. I don't know, it's not the Mandalorian, but it's still the way.
It is still the way.
That is the way.
Okay, see you soon, guys.
See you soon. Bye.
See you soon.